Good afternoon. My name is Tracy Nyer, and I'm with the Virginia SBDC. I'll be your facilitator for today's webinar. For those of you that are not familiar, the Virginia SBDC is the largest and most effective provider of customized counseling and education for small businesses in Virginia. Most of our services are offered locally in 29 different locations throughout the Commonwealth. Today's webinar is one of our educational offerings and is part of our ongoing webinar series, Google and Beyond, Marketing and Managing on the Web. This series is designed to take a look at tools and techniques to help small businesses take their business to the next level. Today's topic is small business PR on the web. All of our Google and Beyond webinars are presented by Ray Sidney Smith, web and mobile strategist, author of So Low Mo Success, Social Media, Local and Web Small Business Marketing Strategies Explained, and president of W3 Consulting. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type those questions into the question window and Ray will do his best to answer them. Without further ado, here's Ray Sidney Smith.
Thank you, Tracy, and thank you to the Virginia SBDC Network for having me here on the Beyond Google Marketing and Managing on the Web series. As Tracy said, we're going to be talking about small business PR on the web, and I'm noticing a little bit of drop-off in my own audio. So if for some reason you hear me not clearly for some reason, you just go ahead and let Tracy know, and I'll be happy to repeat myself as we make our way along. But right now, I just see a little bit of wavering in my own audio, so just in case. So anyway, we're going to be talking about public relations today. I am not a public relations professional, so I will be telling you about my experiences as an entrepreneur, as a small business entrepreneur, and what really the tough work is of marketing your business by attempting to get press or media exposure. Okay, today's agenda I'll talk about in a moment. As we typically do, housekeeping. If you have any questions, now is definitely the time to ask. Go ahead and ask those afterward by emailing me. I'll have my email address on the final slide. And if you, I wish my GoToWebinar tool would stop taking over the screen. If we have questions after the webinar, feel free to go ahead and tweet at me at W3 Consulting, hashtag that beyond Google. I'll be happy to answer those questions. And like I said, my email will be on the final slide. As well, go ahead and follow at Virginia SBDC for new information about other programs that they provide through the Virginia Small Business Development Center Network. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the public relations topic, which is doing this stuff using web marketing today, okay? And it's really important for us to be able to understand the sort of new world that we're living in, which is a very digital world. And so I want to cover my lessons learned in public relations, specifically, on the web, but, off the web as well. I'd also like to talk about some of the tools that are available for you as a small business owner to really interact and engage with journalists, influencers, and bloggers today, using some really cool tools. And I'd like to also talk about some resources that you can sort of jump off with. I'm not the public relations guru. I want you to go out there and find some more information and to learn yourself about public relations from some resources that I've used and I believe that you will find of interest. So let's first start off with some lessons learned in public relations. My own background was, owning several small businesses and continue to do so. And I started off pretty green in the ears, trying to figure out how to get exposure and sort of let people know about me and my business. At that time, I was in real estate and trying to get people to really understand what the type of work was that we did. It was a very niche practice, and so this is what I learned as I made my way along that road. So first and foremost, like I said earlier, this is not an academic discussion or dissertation on public relations. So if there are any public relations professionals who are watching or who will watch this in the archived version, by no means am I trying to bastardize the the industry. But this is sort of how I see small business, public relations, and publicity for the rest of us. Okay, and so the first type of publicity that you're really trying to get as a small business owner, at least I was as ongoing positive publicity acquisition. Basically, I was attempting to go out there and find media exposure, right? That was the idea of going out there and looking for people who could talk about us, whether that be in the press, whether that be magazines, whatever the particular option was back then, blogging was very new, at least a small business, and or as a platform in general. So we were blogging back then, but that was when pretty much no one else was blogging in our own industry, at least. And so we went out there and we started going out there, going after people to find out who was going to talk about us. Go out and look at the newspaper articles that are written about us in our industry, and I would recommend you do the same. Do some research looking for where people are currently being exposed. And for us, we looked at the real estate mailbag, in the Washington Post, and we recognized that people were reading that, and so that was someplace that we might want to go ahead and get ourselves, in some way, shape, or form. It never worked out, but the point is that we got other press for the research that we put in. The second type generally is positive exposure opportunities, as I call it. Okay, and this really just comes down to media exposure somehow found you for something positive that happened about your business. Okay, these are the positive moments that just serendipitously happen, and maybe they're not serendipitous because you've been laying the groundwork for it, but the reality is that media is coming to you and they're asking you for quotes, for to be quoted for some kind of article, or for for local cable television, whatever the particular issue is, and you have to be prepared for that kind of publicity as well for the business. And then last but not least, which is the sort of the unfortunate aspect of all business, pretty much all life, is that sometimes there are crises, and those crises, or AKA damage control, happen from things that might be beyond your control. They might have been within your control, and now you have to, basically, take it on the chin for purposes of that. But there's definitely crisis management as an aspect of ongoing and overarching publicity for your small business. So you really need to think about these three areas of your business, and the best I can say about them in totality, and then I'll close out and answer any questions maybe that you might have about this particular area of lessons learned. But the reality is that we had a plan for each of those areas. Okay, so outbound communication starts with the ongoing positive publicity acquisition, right? So we have to have some kind of ongoing, what I call in solo success, the idea of speaking, the idea of going out there and consistently putting good content out there into the world so that people get an idea about what your brand represents. Okay, and that may be a brand, sub-brand, product or service, whatever it might be, and in some cases personality if you are the business, in a lot of ways, that kind of thing. But you've got to go out there and consistently put out a consistent brand message so that people are seeing what you're all about. Okay, and that means that at some point someone's going to go ahead and pick that up, and that will give them the impetus to potentially reach out to you for furthering a relationship, and I'll get to that. So that's number one. Have a plan for each of these areas. Have a crisis plan. What happens when there's a crisis, and how is that going to be managed, right? If some journalist runs up to you with a tape recorder and says, X or Y question, you need to know what the plan is for how you're going to respond. And no longer today is, no response unless it's because of something potentially illegal or incriminating, that kind of thing. Then you might want to say, I'd like to speak to legal counsel or what have you, or tax counsel or financial counsel before we discuss those matters. But for the most part, you have to have a plan. I mean, I can't imagine you walking out into the world and not expecting that if something, especially if your business lends to that kind of conflict and potential sort of media frenzy, you want to be able to be prepared for crisis management. But you never know what kind of crises would come up, but you have to have an overarching plan. Who's going to respond to those? Who's the appropriate person to respond to those things, and how are you going to respond? Okay, you think about like the BP oil spill, or these kinds of things like McDonald's putting out the hashtag to tell your McD story, and then all of a sudden people respond negatively to those things, as people have had good and bad experiences at the restaurant. And or the BP oil spill, obviously people have feelings about that, and the companies respond poorly to that. Well, you should know that people are potentially going to respond negatively to almost anything that you put out in the world. So how will you respond to those things? One good recommendation I would make is that Jay Baer, B-A-E-R, recently published a book called Hug Your Haters. And Hug Your Haters is a book all about dealing with, negative online feedback. And so it's a good sort of crisis management tool, I believe, in definitely the web world. So I'd check that book out if you haven't heard of it yet. All right, so those are the three areas. So moving right along, the first and foremost thing that I always think about when I think about public relations beyond just those three areas and having a plan for each is the idea that you have to have the right spokesperson, okay? And spokespeople come in many different forms, right? So you could have someone who is an actor or actress who is on a commercial for you. You do a little YouTube video, or you decide to do a news ad, an ad in the local cable television or something like that. Well, that person's being paid as a spokesperson for you, okay? You could have testimonials from past clients. Those people are spokespeople. You, as the company owner or someone who works at the company, you are a spokesperson if media, journalists, bloggers, whomever come to you for some type of quotation, statistics about the company, information about the company, and there needs to be an appropriateness to understanding yourself as a spokesperson. Now, generally, business owners tend to be the spokespeople. And one of the things that I've noticed about some small businesses is that sometimes the spokesperson should not be the business owner. And that could be for a number of different reasons, okay? And it's tough to take. It's tough to sort of, develop and grow a business that, some people liken it to being their baby. If you feel that kind of kinship with your business, it's tough to say, oh yeah, you know what, I'm not best to represent this company. But there are times when that's the case. For example, if you're an adult and you're catering to children, sometimes it's good to have a child spokesperson who actually represents the company for those kinds of ongoing positive, publicity acquisition campaigns, right? It would make sense for, if you owned a gymnastics center and you had a young, aspiring gymnast to be the person who represents your company, okay, and speaks on their behalf, because they're the target audience, and the target audience will better, relate with the person who is actually receiving that information. Okay, so really think about who's the right spokesperson. If you have poor communication skills, and I know that's tough to, you just haven't developed in that way yet, you might want to have a temporary spokesperson, okay? If for some reason you don't fit the demographic of your audience and it potentially will cause more problems than it's worth, get a spokesperson, okay? If you just have a bad attitude, I've seen this many times, just somebody has a bad attitude and they come across that way, it's all right, you're still the business owner. Just get somebody else who can give a bit more positive affect and positive, that type of thing. If you're fearful of public communication or public speaking or those kinds of things, find someone else, okay? I'm just saying that there are reasons and times when the right spokesperson is not you. If you are the right spokesperson, that's okay. You have to develop your skills anyway. So never think that you're, out the gate as a business owner, you're just going to step out there and be able to represent the company best. It takes honing a good, elevator pitch and customizing those pitches for every time you come into contact with any member of the press or the blogosphere or otherwise, okay? When it comes to choosing the right spokesperson, I always like to say that disclosure is so important, okay? I use a common sense approach to this, right? So if you're doing an advertisement, a video ad or something like that, or a display ad, people typically don't have to disclose that they're being paid in order to be able to do that, okay? What you would do is that if that was a testimonial from a customer, a past customer, current customer, that kind of thing, you would clearly show that this was a testimonial. You make a little statement on the video or in the display ad showing that particular item is someone that's the case. Well, the same thing sort of applies in publicity. If a journalist wants to talk to one of your customers, you make sure that you tell them this is a non-paid customer. Make sure that you make everyone aware that I'm not paying this customer to tell them this information, okay? And so make sure that, for some reason a customer got a free sample from you or free services, make sure you disclose that also to the journalist or the blogger so that they're aware that this person was given some kind of remuneration for purposes of the testimonial. Not for necessarily purposes of the testimonial, but they certainly gave the testimonial understanding that they got this for free. They didn't actually put out money for it. Okay, so there's always a sort of a common sense approach you have to take to disclosing the disclosure of payment. So make sure that you always keep that in mind. Next is due diligence, and I cannot make a better example than Jared and Subway, right? So this recent situation with Jared, coming up with all of this, unfortunate and very terrible situation for the company, and obviously the horrible nature of what he was doing of hurting children, in any capacity, is a clear public relations nightmare. And the company comes out, of course, and says, "Oh, we've disconnected all ties, and he's nothing else is connected to him." Well, the reality is that they gave no sense of apology or compassion for the victims. They just sort of just cut ties and went on with their business. I think you should be much more careful about who you select to be the person who represents your company in each of those capacities. All right, so be very, very clear about the fact that skeletons in their closets become skeletons in your office, your retail shop, or your showroom floor as soon as they become public. Okay, and so definitely do some searching on the people who are going to be your spokespeople, including yourself. Make sure that that if you Google yourself, something silly that may not be about you comes up. Go ahead and get that cleared up. Figure out why or how that misinformation or potentially legitimate information that just makes you look bad is showing up, and how you can fix that on the web before you go out there and sort of make yourself and your company look like a fool because this particular spokesperson has this kind of bad stuff out there. Okay, so just do a basic Google search, Yahoo, Bing, search across the major networks, see what information exists, and maybe make a couple phone calls, find out who these people are, and all that other stuff. You may know them, you may not know them, but you definitely should check to see what the search engines are going to say about them when a journalist or a blogger goes ahead and does that same search. Okay, I would also recommend that you do that inside of what we call a private browsing session. In all of the browsers, you're capable of going to what's called a private browsing session, and inside that basically turns off all of the customization or cookies and all the other things that Google and the other search engines do to know it's you. And so since it doesn't know it's you, it will do a more generic search, and so you'll get you'll cast a wider net when you're doing that. All right, so that's enough about due diligence. Next up are all about clear instructions, boundaries, and coaching. Okay, this is about giving clear instructions to the spokesperson about what they're representing your company for. If it's the whole company, or if it's merely a product, division, or specific sub-brand of a company or organization. Make it very clear, because if you tell a past customer or current customer who's doing a testimonial, right, and they're only supposed to be talking about with that journalist or blogger about that one particular product or brand, and they start talking very generally about the company, they could be misinforming the public about you and that kind of thing. Another thing is spelling of company names. I've been quoted many times in the Washington Post, and I would be remiss to say that you could actually Google me and find those articles, but almost every time they spell my name, my company name wrong, and it's just journalists are they're under tight deadlines. They're writing. Sometimes fact checking isn't necessarily the first thing on their mind. They have to go back and edit those things at times. But the reality is that mistakes happen, and it consistently happens. I have a hyphenated last name. The company name is unique, so people just tend to get it wrong. So make sure that you reinforce to the spokesperson as well as to the journalist or the blogger they may be connecting with the correct spelling of the names, correct website addresses, correct email or contact information that might be relevant to them for customers to potentially connect with you. Give clear instructions. Next is definitely clear boundaries, making sure that if you do say that they're going to be talking about X or Y, tell them what they can or cannot talk about, right? So say, listen, you're going to be talking to so-and-so. You could talk about this particular sub-brand or this particular product, but we're not really ready to talk about the second or third edition or new version of that particular software or this particular product that we'll be launching in 6 months. Let's just keep that quiet, because that's going to give us the best perspective to focus people on the thing that they can buy right now. So you want to sort of keep people aware of what they can and can't do. And this all comes down to coaching them. You have to coach people properly, okay? Including yourself. You might need some coaching yourself. You might need an executive communications coach, or you may need a PR professional to come in and help you with those, with being the right spokesperson, okay? So if you have any questions about spokespeople, that's great. Let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and move us right along to my sort of next big lesson learned in public relations. As I said at the top, I learned from doing, and I just happened to be a techie kind of guy, and so we decided that we would launch a blog, and it was a very sort of ahead of the curve kind of thing, but it meant we made a heck of a lot more success in the business and the industry, because nobody else was blogging in our industry. Nobody else was talking about title insurance and real estate settlements and escrow services online. So we were answering questions for people and really getting people to understand what we were and how we operated in the sort of the mix of, you have a real estate agent, you have a mortgage lender in some way, shape, or form, and you have all of these other parties, your home inspector and your appraiser and your surveyor and so on and so forth. Who was this person that you sat down at the table with and worked with, for those few minutes, while you, probably an hour or two while you were signing your documents? We tried to educate people about how important we were to the overall real estate process. So we started blogging about it, okay? And by far, it's the best PR available to you, okay? For consistent brand messaging, you can blog about your business, your industry, products, and services, okay? And you should be blogging about all four. It's a happy mix, okay? You should be talking about all of those pieces that you have. So go out there and blog. Start blogging. It's, like I said, it's going to be the best bang for your buck. All right, it's just so important that you go out there and have a consistent brand message and are sharing that out to the world, because that's what's going to allow journalists and other media and bloggers to go out there and find you and to be able to bring you into their fold in terms of, oh yeah, you know what, that's that person who's a subject matter expert on X industry. The next time I have to write an article or do a segment or do whatever, I'm going to reach out to them in order to do that. All right, so make sure that you start blogging. And whoever said anything about blogs being dead, that's absolute bunk. So don't listen to it. It's absolutely still the most pressing issue of our time to get small businesses to have a website and a blog. I mean, it's like number 1 and 2. Get a website, get a blog. Make sure they're both mobile responsive. Period. Okay. Good public relations, just 101. All right, next up are press releases. People are always talking to me about press releases, and they ask me, what they should do with their press releases on their website and how they should put them together. Okay, well, let's get real here, folks. Press releases are good, but relationships with journalists and bloggers are way better, okay? So if you do not have relationships with journalists and bloggers, you do not have good publicity, all right? You're just never going to have good publicity, because you can write as many press releases as you want, but they're just basically blog posts sitting on the web with probably very little search engine growth, okay? So unless you already are a celebrity, you're not going to get that kind of exposure. You need to develop relationships with local journalists and bloggers who are going to be able to expose you to a far wider community, okay? So here's the thing. This is what you've got to do. First and foremost, you need to establish working relationships with journalists and bloggers, okay? So what that really means is that you need to go out there and find them, okay? So you go out there and you find the appropriate magazine or newspaper or industry blog or the television channel or the web channel. Now with YouTube, there are total web channels. I just recently came across something called Pluto, and Pluto is a TV network, if you want to call it that, but it's all based on YouTube videos. So it's based on YouTube. So it's like, like you see the TV guide, there's basically a YouTube guide on Pluto, and there are regular ongoing segments from all of these various people. So it's basically turning the web videos into a television network. It's absolutely brilliant, and I wish I had thought of it. And so the idea here is for you to go out there and to look at the mastheads of the newspapers, the local newspapers, as well as maybe some national newspapers if that's going to be good for you, your business, but really focus on the local. You know, if your business is local, you want to focus on the local. Look for that in the same, you know, cable channel, websites. They'll have the appropriate people. What you want to look for are the people who are going to, of course, be able to help your business, okay? You're looking for the people who are going to be able to satisfy your needs, okay? So one of the things I consistently see are people going after the wrong journalists, right? So they'll go out there and they'll look for anyone at the Washington Post, and they'll just start blasting them with pitches, and that person maybe is home and decor versus the person who actually covers small business or your industry, which might be manufacturing, right? Focus on the people who are actually going to be, going to actually be able to help you. So really focus on working on relationships that are actually fruitful. Go after the people who are features editors of the particular, industry or product or service that you do. Okay, so make sure you pick the right people. That's the #1 frequent issue that I see is people go after the wrong person. Okay, so make sure they cover your industry or at least your business in some way, shape, or form. And many times a small business, if it's a small business writer or the small business editor, they are frequently going to be interested if your business is a small business and it's doing something unique, okay? All right, next, know your journalist or blogger like you know your children. What I mean by that is, first and foremost, find out their deadlines. If they have to publish, if they have to get their stuff to their editor finalized by Thursday morning, you should know that, okay? You should know that they have a dog named Ricky. You should know that they don't like, the Oxford comma, okay? You should really get to know them well. You might even want to go out to lunch with them, on occasion. Build an actual relationship with these people, because the reality is that they're human just like you and they like the attention, okay? And there's nothing wrong with building relationship with them, because the more and the better they get to know you, especially if they're a blogger, the more they're going to expose you to their community, their audience. So, make sure that you know which style manual they follow. For example, the major ones in the United States, the Associated Press manual, New York Times, the Wall Street Journal manuals. Those are the 3 majors in this country. You should know what those style manuals look like and how you should be writing those press releases and or articles for them in any way, shape, or form, that's going to be published. Chicago Manual Style, of course, especially if the blogger is going to be authoring books, the blogger likely will, if they're worth their muster, they're going to be following and adhering to a manual style. Chicago Manual Style is typical for authors. So, like myself, I typically stick to Chicago. If your world is more scientific, maybe you have some kind of, scientific, bent. It might be APA. If it's more literature, it might be MLA. Make sure that you know which style manual and write for those style manuals so that people don't have to re-engineer things. Because the worst thing that if I were a journalist, and I've heard this many times from many different journalists in the media, is they get press releases and it gives them the idea, but they've got to do way more work now just to bring you into the article or bring the idea to life because you just gave them an idea. What you generally want to do is you basically want to write the press releases for publication, okay? Write it as though the journalists, and this is the hope, can literally copy and paste your press release into their writing and go with it, okay? You want them to get this into the newspaper, so just write the press releases as though they should be able to copy and paste. That means making sure that grammar is correct, and style, and tone, all of that, syntax are together, okay? You're not writing this for not to be successful. You should be writing this for success, okay? Next up, press releases are for the journalists or the bloggers to be able to have first right of refusal to breaking a story, okay? So if this particular topic, okay, is really something big, okay, which it should be, You know, it should be of importance. It's the news. It's not news, right? It's not boring stuff we all want to talk about. It's really engaging, important, shocking news that people want to, you know, put their eyeballs on. That's what sells newspapers. That's what sells ads. People want to, you know, find news that's of interest to them. So to be able to have a hook, to be able to write a press release that's going to have something that's engaging. So make sure that your headline is appropriate, all of those things. But you want to give that journalist or blogger that you've built a relationship with first right of refusal. Send it to them first and say, hey, listen, you know, I'll give you a couple days to think about this, but this is really cool stuff. This is what we're doing. This is a new product we're launching. This is something that's happening in our industry that you may not be aware of. And here goes some important angles on it that I've found, and some, you know, some people that are willing to talk to you about this issue. Give them all of that. Give them the press release, and then say, hey, you've got a couple days. Let me know if you're interested. They don't respond. They're not interested. Fine. Then you go ahead and mass distribute and get that press release out to the rest of everybody else, the people you don't have close relationships with, the people who are just, you know, journalists in that industry, product or service field, whatever that kind of thing, whoever's beat, you know, your business is covered under. Okay. You can then also post that on your blog or website. All right. So if that first, you know, round, you know, your A team in terms of your press release, you know, release schedule doesn't like it, then go ahead and release it to everybody else, okay? And at that point, make sure that you go ahead and post it to your website to give your website more content. That's always good for Google and the search engines. You could put that either under a media section or actually post it as your own blog post, because you've done all the work. You've gotten the press release written in a manner that should be copy and pastable for publication. You've already done the work. You might as well get it up there on your website. You've pretty much written yourself a blog post, so nothing goes to waste. Okay, so remember that. This is about making sure that you have positive and, you know, overlapping impact. If that journalist picks up that story and goes ahead and does it, you can still embed the article on your website or blog correctly. Ask them what their, you know, mechanism is for doing that, but you can always write, you know, 200 words and then, you know, provide a link to the article to let people know that you were, you know, you were publicized in that particular blog or that particular newspaper or whatever, and link back to the article on their website. So make sure that you always utilize this on multiple layers. And make sure that you syndicate all of this press to social media. It's really important for your audience to know that you're being picked up in the press, because then they can expose you, they can refer you to more of their audience, the people they know and trust, the people who will go ahead and refer, you know, be able to refer business in. So you make sure that you're going out there and letting people know for purposes of, you know, getting it out there and letting people know that it exists. Okay, so I've just given you almost everything I know about public relations in terms of lessons learned over the years. These come from my own mistakes, but also seeing others make some big mistakes. So if there aren't any questions, I'm happy to answer questions. I'm going to transition over to talking about some web PR tools you can use. And so let me know if there are any questions, Tracy.
Yep,
Otherwise,
we do have one question, Ray.
Sure.
How often should you blog? Is there too much? Is there too little?
With anything in life, there is such a thing as too much or too little blogging. Okay, so I have a fairly you know, basic recipe for blogging, which is to start off weekly. I mean, there's just really, that's become sort of a standard. So it's 4 blog posts a month if there are 4 weeks in the month, and then adjust accordingly. The way in which I adjust accordingly is to look at your sales. Okay, so sales and revenue is a direct tie to your blogging. Now, there may not be a direct correlation. Okay, but I'm sorry, there might not be a direct causation, right? You post a blog, someone purchases from you. But there is a soft correlation to good marketing and having good sales and revenue numbers. So what I always do is blog more if we're not making enough money, okay? You blog more, you're making enough money. You blog less if you're making enough money and the business is not isn't needing that much content output, okay? So you have to blog at least 6 to 9 months before really anybody takes you seriously. So, you know, take that into account. There's an investment of time into blogging. But once that happens, for most bloggers, small business bloggers especially, you start to see the comments start to roll in. You start to see people interacting. You start to see people bleeding over from your blog posts to your sales, pages, the products and services pages. You start to learn how to capture leads and communicate with them. And when that happens, then you can start to look at your sales and revenue, reports. Look at your accounting software and see, hey, sales have gone up. And that might be because you're blogging more consistently, not because you're blogging more consistently, but because you're potentially answering your phone more consistently. There's something about small habits in marketing, and for that matter in the rest of life, that actually connects those pieces of the puzzle. So if you start blogging consistently, you'll start to see your sales and revenue grow, hopefully. Okay, and then you can start to correlate there. So start weekly and then sort of adjust there. If you need more, you need more. Some industries require far more blogging, and that's just a reality of it. So if you take real estate requires far more blogging. Okay, so you're going to have to double or triple that number of posts, whereas with other industries you may not need that as often. Okay, so just sort of start weekly and then adjust from there. But pay attention to your sales and revenue reports.
Okay, one more question, Ray. What's the best way to handle the negative feedback on Yelp, especially when the good comments are removed and they leave bad?
That is a much bigger topic than we have for today, and that doesn't really, I mean, in my world, that doesn't necessarily fit into the topic today. But what I would say at the start of it is always, respond to the negative, commenters if you're capable of doing so. Reach out to them, and if you can make a grumpy customer happy, they'll do more PR for you, more word-of-mouth marketing for you than any number of people who had a good or okay experience with their company and just went on with their day. So I always say address those negative commenters and make them brand advocates. They are some of the most important people to building your business as possible, because they're either telling you something that's bad about your business, potentially, and this is very rare, but they're mentally unhealthy or unstable, and you can potentially reach out to Yelp and other people to figure out what to do about harassment and that kind of flaring, as they call it. But the other side is go out there and reach out to them and say, hey, listen, let's make this right. Let's make this good. Let's do whatever we can to fix this. And then say to them, hey, these Yelp reviews really make a difference to us getting new business or not. Could you go back there and re-review us? And then that helps them go ahead and understand, oh yeah, that's right, I wrote that negative review. Let me reach out to them and figure out, let me go reach out to Yelp and go to Yelp and leave a new review or update my review to tell them my experiences. Okay? Any other questions?
Nope, we can go ahead and move on.
Okay, great. So in the last part of our time together, I wanted to talk about some web PR tools you can use. I'm going to cover 4 tools: Enkibe, Muckrake, GoPR, and Harrow. Help a reporter out, not in that order. And then I'll talk to you about some resources you can reach out to learn more about PR beyond my lessons learned. Okay. So the first tool I want to talk about is Help a Reporter Out. And Harrow is by far, of all the tools I'm going to talk about today, this is the coolest one. It's the best one that I've ever used, and I continue to love using it every day. Okay? So the basic premise here is pretty simple. You sign up, you get 3 emails per day, and either you're knowledgeable about a subject a reporter needs help on, or you're not, and you pass. Okay, so it's a lot of email. So I actually have a separate email address dedicated to this because it's just a lot of email, and I don't want that showing up in my inbox, erratically. And so what I've done is I've actually created a separate email address and then pulled that email into my own, email system, and then I mark them all as, unread, and then star new ones as they come in, and so it shows up in that folder, sort of buried in my system, and I just know to go to look in there once a day and check it, unstar the items after I've checked it, and then they're all go away. It depends on how you want to do it. You can check them as they come in. It depends on how much time you have throughout your day in order to do it. And but the idea here is that Help a Reporter Out has 2 different sides to it. Okay. One side is that you go ahead and register as a journalist, or you register as a source. You, as a small business owner, would be the source. You monitor those emails as they come in throughout the day, and those emails are filled with reporters who are looking for people who have industry expertise or personal experience, that they can share with the reporter, period, okay? You then respond back to the email if you do fit that category, right? If you are a good source for that reporter, you respond. They get the answer. The journalist can either then reach out to you, ask for specific information to answer the question, and or not, okay? So the best thing to do, though, is that what I always find with Harrow is that if a reporter reaches out to you, you need to go out there and answer as quickly as you can. So as soon as you write a pitch, go ahead and make sure that the reporter knows that you're interested and that they don't skip you, okay? So it is about making sure that you go ahead and respond as quickly as possible so that they know once you've sent a pitch to them that they're working with somebody now, okay? Because usually they're under deadline, and they'll say, oh my gosh, I have 3 days to do this. I don't know, but journalists always tend to have anxiety disorders. But they're always like, they're so anxious, they've got to publish in 3 days, or they've got to put something out tomorrow, and so they're always working under these deadlines. And no offense against anyone who's a journalist. Anyway, but the but the idea there is that you're under time pressure, and because they're under time pressure, you want the media exposure, you're under time pressure too. Okay, so just make sure that you go out there. It's free. So it's pretty brilliant. You don't have to pay for anything. You look at the emails, you review them. If you fit the category, you respond. Okay? So help a reporter out. Forgive me. The email, the URL is actually helpareporterout.com, and so make sure you use www. For some reason, when I went to just helpareporterout.com, it wasn't resolving, so make sure you go to www.helpareporterout.com, okay? So check out Harrow, fantastic for being able to get press, okay? Next up is a tool called Enkibe. Enkibe is actually for marketing agencies or PR agencies that are trying to handle these for their clients, but you can use it too, okay? And so the idea here with Enkibe is that it gives you a structured system for being able to research and discover influencers, knowledge and expertise areas within the web that you're trying to sort of unmask for being able to become a source, okay? And so it searches blogs, it does a whole bunch of discovery work, and it looks for people who are influencing others so that you can then capture them into kind of like a customer relationship management system, but on the opposite side, okay? People that are publishers of content, you're trying to get them on your list so that you can effectively reach out to them when you have something to reach out to them. And it does it for blogs and Twitter specifically. And so Enkibe is good for that kind of thing, okay? It does all kinds of reporting, and you can slice and dice information. So it really has a great contact management and relationship tracker so that you can go ahead and monitor those things. You can monitor things based on keywords, your business name, just in case something positive or negative comes up, you want to be able to jump on that and capitalize on that information. Industry terminology, products or services, competitors, products or services. You might want to jump on that and get some bandwagon media exposure, right? Catch the tail of something that's going on that's really important. And it does all the Google Analytics and gives you reports based on that. So it's a really cool product, okay? And so definitely check out Enkibe. All of the products I'm going to talk about from here on after Harrow are fee-based, okay? So you have to have a budget in order to be able to work with these. And and they all are pretty much in the same price range-ish, all right? So here for Enkibe, it's $79 per month. And then if you have a team that's, gives you 1 user or 3 users, and then it goes up to a large team, which is 8 users. But you can see that this is clearly built for small businesses and for people who maybe is a small marketing agency or a small PR agency that has clients. So you can see you can have 1, 5, or 20 clients, that kind of thing. But you could just use this yourself as a business owner, as we have. And so the idea is you have searches, you have all the discovery tools, you have that sort of contact and keyword management system, and it helps unsurface these people, and then you know, hey, they're the most relevant person for me to contact with this particular pitch, and then it facilitates that process. Okay, so that's Enkibe. Next up is Go PR It, and Go PR It is a tool I came across at the last DC Tech Day, or Tech Day DC. That's a day when lots and lots of startups, exhibit their wares, their software or products. And Go PR It stood out because it's sort of like a CRM light. Again, it has that sort of CRM feel to it, and we have a past webinar on customer relationship management tools, so you can go check that out in the Virginia SBDC archives. And this is more of a CRM for journalists, bloggers, and influencers, and what it does is it really creates an ongoing sort of email-based relationship with those people. And I found it to be really, really very interesting to watch. I actually did one of these daily demos, so I would really recommend that you check out the daily demo and learn as much as you can about the tool. This one also is not cheap. It's $200 a month, but there's no commitment. So the idea here is that you can, say you have, 6 months, or in the next 3 months you're going to have something really big happen in your business. Well, this might be a tool that you, put in the money, the $600 for a quarter, and really work the system to be able to get what you need out of it for that particular amount of time. Maybe you decide that you need 9 months. Maybe you decide you only need 2 months. Whatever the time frame is, you can put in that time frame into the tool and then get out, since there's no long-term commitment, right? So really utilize it for the needs of the system. But the dashboard interface is very easy to navigate. Just everything about it is pretty cool. I think that it's a great tool if you do need that. And what I really like about GoPR is that they provide consulting services. So if for some reason you need a more advanced level assistance, as you start to get more and more media exposure, you can actually have GoPR step in and assist you with the needs that you need within the system. Okay, they have a guaranteed press coverage. So I don't know what that's all about, but they have a guaranteed money back if you don't get press coverage. So that's not bad. So just check it out. It's a very interesting tool. And as I said, I've only done the demo of it. I haven't actually utilized the tool, but I feel like just from the demo itself, it's a pretty interesting tool. Finally, Muckrack. Muckrack has been in the industry for quite a long time, but again, it's really very similar to the GoPR or Enkibe in the sense that it's there to be able to help you connect with journalists and other influencers, bloggers, that kind of thing. And again, it's a dashboard. It helps you stay in contact with them. It helps you unsurface the appropriate people at the right time. It has the same monitoring tool. It's monitoring keywords across Twitter and other places because, as you may or may not know, Twitter is the place for journalists and bloggers to be paying attention to what's happening. So, they're very much Twitter people. So, you want to really pay attention to your PR on Twitter as much as on the blogosphere, searching blogs and that kind of thing for what's happening out there. So Muckrack helps you do that, and then can unearth them and help you facilitate the contact with those people. Okay, they're just about in the same price range, a little bit cheaper it seems like than Go PR It, a little more expensive than Enkibe at $179 a month if you pay annually. I think it's $199 per month if you pay monthly. Okay, and that gives you a limited number of alerts and limited number of media lists, that kind of thing. So they're a little bit more high end of a product, so they're pricing it a little bit more. But definitely look at the products, do demos of all of them, touch base with the sales teams, and figure out what you need the most. What's the bare minimum that you need, so you don't have to pay more money than you need to for the products that you need or the services that you need, and then choose appropriately. Okay, so that's Help a Reporter Out. Again, my favorite among the list. It's not only very effective, but it's also free. Then you have 3 paid products: Enkibe, Go PR It, and Muckrack. Okay, I'm happy to answer any questions about those tools, at least from the perspective that I know. But in the meantime, I'm going to move us along to where to learn more about public relations. And I have some resources for everybody to really look at, in terms of if you want to learn more about PR and you sort of, this is whet your appetite, and you're ready to really sink your teeth into more information. This is where I would go next in terms of finding out more information. Okay, so first up is, as I said near the start of the presentation, which is that, you know, finding the right spokesperson sometimes requires developing or getting some coaching, okay? And I'm almost sure of it, in almost every town or city or region, there's a Toastmasters. Toastmasters is an organization that helps people with public speaking, okay? And there's nothing more important than your ability to stand up you know, in front of a group, you know, answer questions on camera from a reporter, or someone who has you on the phone and is asking you to answer questions that might be recorded or not recorded, but then will eventually be brought into some type of text media, okay? Whether that be a blog article or an article that will appear in print in a magazine or a newspaper. So you really want to be able to hone those skills, and I really think that Toastmasters is a place that everybody, it's very accessible. It's nothing that you have to do, you know, some grandiose thing and all of a sudden you're a professional public presenter. You don't need to be. You just need to be able to effectively convey for your business the things that need to be done. Or you need to make sure that the person who's going to be the spokesperson can do that, okay? So if you have a business partner or if you have a staff member who's the person who's really the front person for the business, salespeople, past customers, that kind of thing, who are really invested in your business, you might want to think about having them either join a Toastmasters or getting an executive communications coach or trainer to maybe come in and help them out before the media, you know, reaches them, you know, so you might have them do a 1 or 2 hour session with them to just get them prepared for that particular session, or if it's for you, that, you know, investment of coaching or training will help you long term. So really look for executive communication coaches. If you need referrals of any, feel free to reach out to me. I know several in Virginia who would be happy to go ahead and help you go ahead and do that, okay? Next up is Coursera, which is what's called a massive online community, online learning community, and so it's a MOOC. And the Coursera site has a public relations series of courses that are taught by the National University of Singapore. And so they're in English language, and the public relations, if you just search public relations when you go to Coursera.org, you can find the 4 free courses on the site, okay? And it's a substantial investment in time, but it happens to be free. You can also get a certification. They call them specializations in Coursera, and so if you go to the site, you might come up with and see the specializations. That is fee-based. I don't know what it costs, but there's a cost associated with going through the courses and then them, I guess, testing you or having you do some kind of work product to produce so that you can certify that you've done the work. And so you could go through the program, but you could just take the courses for free. Okay, so they're just published for you to be able to do. All right, so I would check out those courses. All 4 of them are pretty, very interesting. One of them, which is the social media for public relations, you know, or social media in public relations course, that was very, very fascinating. So very good material if you're looking for that stuff. Okay, next is PRSA, which is the Public Relations Society of America. They are really the organization for PR professionals. Okay, so since they're specifically for PR professionals, you know, they have lots of ongoing professional education and other kinds of things for them. What I would recommend you doing is going to prsa.org and clicking on the learning section, because there's a wealth of knowledge for non-PR small business owners that are available there. So you have to sort of cherry pick the information, right? Because you might see lots of, you know, industry jargon and other things of that nature, but buried in there are trainings and webinars, and there's a blog under the learning section and more, all about, you know, learning about PR. So, you know, there are some really interesting things in there, seminars and workshops and webinars that I've attended that have been very, very fruitful. And, you know, I'm not a PR professional, I'm just learning about the topic. So definitely check out prsa.org under learning. Okay. Next up is Lynda. Lynda is a company that is now Lindacom, which is owned by LinkedIn, you know, the business social network. We've done 2 past seminars, past webinars on those topics. You can again find those archives on the virginiaspdc.org. Under live webinars and recordings. You can find our webinars on those 2 topics or on LinkedIn, which was broken up into two, and so Lynda.com has 4 really great courses on public relations. So if you just go and visit Lynda.com and just type in public relations, you'll find the public relations topics. I think there are 4 of them that I found, and I've done at least 3 of the 4. I'm off the top of my head. I'm sure I've done 3 of the 4. So I would check them out. Lynda.com is fee-based, so there's a monthly fee associated with it, but I think they give you a free trial where you get a week or something like that, 14 days or something like that, so that you can test it out. So you have full access to the system for that free trial. So if you've not used Lynda.com before, go ahead and sign up and take all the courses in a week. Set aside some time and do or whatever, not all of them, but the ones you want to take. And also check out your local library, because Lynda has partnerships with many local library systems, and they will go ahead and, most of the time you have to go into the library in order to access it, but why not? It's free education, okay? Next and last is under sort of the crisis management branch of sort of the triumvirate, right? The ongoing positive public acquisition, going out there and having positive, media come to you, and then finally crisis or damage control management. There is a free seminar called the Crisis Management Pro Seminar on iTunes. So you do not have to have an Apple Macintosh computer in order to download and install and to use iTunes. So you can install the iTunes application on your Windows computer or on your Mac, which should be pre-installed on the Mac. And then just go into iTunes and search for crisis management, and you will find in iTunes, I think it's under iTunes U, the iTunes University, a free crisis management seminar. It's pretty in-depth. It took me, I think, like 3 weeks to go through it, because it's a course, so you watch the videos and so on and so forth, and I just sort of metered them out over the course of time, and it walks you through crisis management. So it's really good. It'll help you and or your staff develop a crisis management plan, so that you have an effective means for being able to respond in times of crisis. Okay, so that's where I would start in terms of learning more about PR. I'm happy to take questions now, Tracy, and then once we're done with questions, we can wrap up.
Great, Ray. Have you used wire service for distributing press releases? We found it to be good for SEO, but what's your experience?
Yeah, so we have tested that out with certain clients, and so Newswire and some other services out there do a pretty fantastic job of being able to get it out there. What we found, though, is that the search engine growth is limited. It's very time-bound. So it's sort of, you get a peak and then it drops off precipitously and usually falls below where you were before that. So just be aware, watch your analytics, and this is very specific to certain industries. So we found that there's a huge disparity in some industries versus others, and I don't have any slides to show you some of the statistics, but some internal statistics we have show that some industries will have a nice uptick, some it's sort of a soft sort of a soft increase that lasts for a while, but then eventually it meters off. So just make sure that you test it out. Try it for a couple of times and see whether or not that actually doesn't bring you lower at the end of the game than not. What usually helps is, again, having a blog and making sure that you're consistently blogging, because that usually means website visitors come, they learn about your product or service, but then they see that you are not putting out regular content, and they have no other mechanism for being able to stay in touch with you, whether that be through a regular email newsletter or through a blog or something else like that, and so they don't come back. And that actually depresses your search engine growth even more, because Google sees a bunch of people come to your website and never come back. That increases your bounce rate. That means Google's going to show you to less people, which means that they show you to less people, which means you get less organic traffic than you would have if you did nothing. Okay, so just pay attention to that rubric, and if you can do that, then you'll be much better off. So blog, make sure that your organic is doing well, and then also you can use a Newswire service on top of that.
Okay. Is there a major rule? Is there a major role for a tool like augmented reality app, like, I'm going to spell it for you because I'm not sure how it's pronounced, AURASMA for PR?
I'm sorry, I don't know the tool. I know lots of tools, but that one's not coming to me. If the person has any further sort of information they can provide on it, I guess it's Erasma. I'm happy to answer specific questions about it, but from my perspective, I haven't seen really anyone doing augmented reality, in the media yet, because the technology is just not there yet. I think that that once Facebook launches their product, and Google's working on that with Google Cardboard. I think Google's probably closer to the game than not, because they've got Google Cardboard already out. You're going to see more of it, but the way in which I see it. So I'll just, in very brief, the way in which I see it is that what will eventually happen is the opportunity to bring people in sort of panel discussions. So think about the way in which the Huffington Post has created HuffPost Live, and they've been able to bring in people who are not celebrities, but people who are experts in the industry into Google Hangouts on Air. And that's a really great way to be exposed in a digital environment that's not augmented reality, but more bringing people into a digital environment where they can be quoted or interviewed for press. So I would be much more interested in that than I would be right now with augmented reality, because I just don't see the technology being there yet for at least another couple of years, certainly not on the small business level. You'll see some people who are celebrities and that kind of thing in TechCrunch, they'll start to do that stuff. But for your level, for what you're trying to do in terms of local business, I don't see the media being at that level yet to bring in, the average small business person and being able to make that work. So look at like a Google Plus Hangouts on Air kind of future, being sort of the first step in that direction.
Great. Well, we've passed the 15 after the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and close up. Thanks everyone for participating today. Today's webinar was recorded and will be posted on the Virginia SBDC website under live webinars and recordings. Tomorrow you'll be receiving a follow-up email on the webinar, and there'll be an evaluation link in that email. Please help us to continue to improve our training by taking the time to complete the evaluation. If you'd like to complete it now, I've posted the link in the chat window, so you can go ahead and take the time now to do that. And we will see everyone on March 24th for Google Chrome, the little browser that can. Thanks, Ray.
Thank you.